The Nothing Phone 3A dropped 5 months ago, and since then we've had the OnePlus Nord 5 and the Samsung A56. Both sit within that mid-range smartphone market that the 3A occupies. But the question we're going to answer today is there a smartphone king, and can the Nothing Phone 3A compete against these two? When you have all three of these devices laid down in front of you, your attention immediately draws to the 3A because you get that classic transparent back and that glyph interface, so it automatically stands out straight away. And then if you look at the A56, you got a pretty decent design. It's a little bit boring and safe, but it's classic A56. But of the three, I think the Nord 5's design profile is the nicest. It may not be the most dynamic when you look at the back, but in this white marble color, and when you have it in hand, it feels the most premium. But looks are all subjective. These three, this trifecta here and this triple threat, we want to see how they perform against each other in the stuff that really truly matters. The 3A, you get a 6.77 inch LTPO AMOLED display with 120Hz and 3000 nits of peak brightness. So the advantage you have here is you get great, smooth and vibrant colors with great contrast, and the blacks are super dark and inky, exactly what you did want from a AMOLED display. Now the A56 on the other hand has a 120Hz 6.7 inch AMOLED display with 1900 nits of peak brightness, and the Nord 5 has a 6.83 inch AMOLED display with 144Hz and 1800 nits of peak brightness. So the diversity amongst the three isn't that great, but what I would say, the content watching on all three is super good, and you get the rich benefit of color, contrast, vibrancy and detail in everything that you're watching. However, the 3A's display, when you are outdoors looking out in a vibrant area at that 3000 nits, pushes it over the edge versus the A56 and the Nord 5. Performance. Now the Nothing 3A here does have a Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 chipset inside, and when you're actually using the phone from its super slick smooth OS, which means little to no bloatware, fast transitions between apps, opening and closing apps is really great, multitasking, browsing the web, all that performs very well. When you then game as well, you're again getting a really good experience. No jitter, no lag, no issues at all. However, what I would say is there are moments, small moments, when you are getting some breakdown in the processor, maybe not being able to cope with as much as what you're trying to do. It doesn't happen in gaming as much as it does in the OS. Whether that can be fixed in software support is there to be seen. And this is where the Nord 5's chipset comes in, because this is powered by a Snapdragon 8S Gen 3, which is that next level up, and it's the best chipset amongst all three devices, because what you're going to have here is a super slick OS, very similar to Nothing OS, runs very well with not a lot of bloatware. Transitioning in between apps is again super smooth, and then if you move across to things like gaming, you then get that next level up in terms of gaming performance. In fact, OnePlus has optimized this chipset to perform even better when it comes to gaming. So top level games like Call of Duty Mobile, even in really high settings for FPS and for graphics, will hit 60 FPS comfortably, which is awesome. The middle sector in all this is the Samsung A56. This chipset is powered by the the Exynos 1580, and what you have here is a solid overall performer. Kind of sits just below the Nord 5, very similar to the 3A. In a sense, what you get here is a snappy, fast OS, no issues with any transitions, opening and closing apps, multitasking, all works very well, and then gaming performance again works very well. You can push the gaming performance on the A56 to that next level, but it doesn't perform as well as the Nord 5. The Nothing Phone 3A's cameras on the back in this sort of visor-like design, you get triple camera setup, 50 megapixel main, 50 megapixel telephoto, 8 megapixel ultrawide. Now the main lens is an overall solid performer offers a good balance of colors with a great amount of detail and well-balanced contrast. If you move over to the telephoto, sharp images, crisp looking photos, and again does a really good job and doesn't go OTT on the contrast. The downfall of the 3A is its 8 megapixel ultra-wide, so it's a lower lens in terms of its pixel count. It's only okay. Images tend to look quite soft and muted at times, and there's a lack of detail compared to the other two lenses. The Nord 5, on the other hand, when it comes to cameras, you get a dual camera setup here. You get a 50 megapixel main sensor and then an 8 megapixel ultra-wide. Now that main 50 megapixel sensor is essentially the same out of the OnePlus 13R. So this is a near flagship level performer, and you get super crispy and detailed photos that look near flagship level, especially for those rear cameras. Great colors, well balanced in terms of color and contrast, and again it's super easy to get a truly great photo. Now the 8 megapixel ultra wide is the same as what you get in a 3A, however it does a slightly better job, I'm guessing, in post of rendering its images. You still don't get as much detail as you'd want, but it looks less soft and just as less detailed, so very similar output as the phone 3A. The 56, the Samsung A56 to be exact, has a 50 megapixel main lens, which again is classic Samsung. You get a super contrasty and detailed colors turned right the way up. In fact, you've added in a lot of vibrancy here to make the contrast level like 100 out of 100, God knows why, but it's really effective. But it's not a true real-to-life image, although there is a lot of ton of detail there, and a lot of people do love the way it looks. The main benefit between the three here, in terms of its cameras, the A56 versus the other two, is in its ultra-wide. You get 12 megapixel ultra-wide here, which gathers far more data than the other two. It doesn't have that same soft or flat look in its images as well, so that ultra-wide stands out amongst the three. Then the three in its totality. Essentially what you have here is three phones which all the main lenses perform very, very well. All three 50 megapixels as well, all perform very, very well. What I would say, the versatility of the Nothing Phone 3A, because it has a telephoto lens of 50 megapixels, would be the most attractive of the three. However, if you go by just performance alone, I would pick the main sensor and the camera setup of the Nord 5 as the winner between these three. So the question is, does the 3A actually beat the Nord 5 and the A56? Well, let's look at price. The 3A costs $329, the A56 costs $499, and the Nord 5 costs $399. These are all the retail prices as of when they were released, regardless of promotion. So in that sense, yes, it does. Let's break it down in the most simplest way we possibly can. If you want the best display with the best design and the most versatile cameras, then get the 3A. If you want the best built, most premium looking with the best main camera lens, then get the Nord 5. And then if you want the overall sort of right bang in the middle, classic Samsung phone, the most, I guess, reliable or go-to, then get the A56s. Also will have the most support when it comes to OS as well. And speaking quickly of performance, the A56 is actually the slowest charging amongst these three devices, with the 3A and the Nord 5 being significantly faster charging. But let us know in the comment section your thoughts on this comparison between all three phones. For us, there is a really difficult question to answer if there is a mid-range king, because there's probably about another 20 devices we can review. But what I would say is the 3A, even 5 months later, it's still a standout device. That triple camera setup with that additional telephoto lens of 50 megapixel is an absolute win, combined with the excellent Nothing OS, and of course that standout design makes it a definitive 100% phone worth buying, especially it being the cheapest amongst the three. But again, let us know in the comment section your thoughts. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Until the next one, as always, we out.